2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, Friday, the 1st of May. Happy May Day, comrades. My name's Adam. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. This afternoon, a very short guided tour, a London music tour live. Hashtag tour guiding from home. I'm coming round your house to lead a guided tour. That's my thing. That's what I do these days because we can't get outside. We can't get outside. We're on lockdown. I hope you're all well and I hope you're all safe and I hope you're all coping. I'm here to divert you for 20 minutes or so this afternoon with a live guided tour. Hashtag tour guiding from home. This is a London music tour. Let's explain what we're going to do here. Let's show you, well, we're going to have a couple of slides this afternoon as well. Here we go. Smashing. Here we are. Now, we are looking for a very famous album sleeve on our tour this afternoon. But before then, let's explain what we get up to. Hashtag tour guiding from home, socially distanced guided tours. I'm coming round your house to guide a tour. It is the 1st of May today, the 1st of May, and this is tour number 3. Usually on a Friday afternoon, I'd be out there with you, face to face. We'd all be together. We'd all be doing the Rock and Roll London walking tour. I've been doing that for about 15 years with the famous London Walks company. I'm a qualified tour guide, and these days I even teach tour guiding at the University of Westminster. That's what I get up to when we're not on lockdown. But at the moment, as I like to say, I'm coming round your house to do a guided tour. What we usually do, as I said, on a Friday afternoon, but of this, as you can see on screen, this is a little clip from our Rock and Roll London Walk, 2 o'clock on Friday afternoons at Tottenham Court Road. Don't go to Tottenham Court Road station, stay home, stay home. I'll come round your house and do a tour from here. So virtual tours, like this one this afternoon, this one's free. And on a Wednesday night next week, I'm launching the Rock and Roll London Walk with live music and a pub quiz online via Zoom, a virtual tour. It costs £8. Come and see me. And for your £8, you will get a free place on the real life Rock and Roll London tour when lockdown is over. So that's Wednesday night. Come and see me. Tuesday night, Beatlemania at 7 o'clock. Come and see me for that. That also costs £8. And for your £8, you get, again, a free place on the real life guided tour. But for the moment, well, we can't go out. We're stuck at home. So I'm coming round your house to do a guided tour. Here's the topic. 3 weeks ago, I led a tour in London and Chicago. So I thought that was quite a big scale tour. So what's the opposite, I thought to myself, of a big scale tour? A small scale tour. And we are going to do a guided tour that will cover an area roughly 12 inches by 12 inches. We're doing a tour of this sleeve, the Beatles for Sale, 1964. Now, over the next 10 days or so, I'm going to be putting out a podcast discussing the music on this album here. But today, I just want to have a look around on the sleeve. It's an information-rich document, and we can do a guided tour 12 by 12. So we're not traveling very far because we're stuck at home. Let's have a look at the picture here. The picture was made by Robert Freeman, great photographer Robert Freeman. The brief, the design brief between the Beatles, Brian Epstein, their manager, and Robert Freeman, the photographer. Beatles at sunset, that was the only brief. And you can see the rich color tones there. Shot in London in late 1964. Where exactly? Well, here exactly. There's the map on screen of Hyde Park. The map dates from 1965. Robert Freeman, the photographer, his office was just to the north here. Brian Epstein's home, his London home, was just down here, just off Belgrave Square in Chapel Street. And just in this corner of the map here, this is Buckingham Palace, where the Beatles would visit to get their MBE in 1965. But the sleeve shot in Hyde Park for Beatles for Sale, late 1964. Robert Freeman is the photographer. You can see in the front of the sleeve, they are facing towards Kensington, facing west, into the sunset. Lovely autumnal palette there in the fallen leaves. This is the back of the album sleeve. I think the first thing we might notice is that no smiles. They've abandoned the happy clappy, lovable mop top look here. No smiles. They look quite grave, perhaps. Not smiling. Now, the Rolling Stones have led the way here in the not smiling front. Surprise, surprise. The Rolling Stones, their first two albums, number 1 and number 2, cover shots by David Bailey. They're growling and scowling into the camera. So the Stones have already posed for album sleeves with no smiles. But here are the Beatles looking serious, looking perhaps mature, I don't know. The other thing that the Stones pioneered in this country, no title on the album sleeve, not the name of the band, not the name of the album. And you can see here that Beatles for Sale is receding into the distance, a very small typeface for the title of the album. I think also comment worthy is George's hair here. Can you see that? One of the great haircuts of the 1960s. I think George was always the coolest Beatle, in my opinion. Robert Freeman is the photographer. No smiles on the Beatles for Sale album. Freeman pops up again and again and again in the work of the Beatles. Here's his name here. This is on the rear of the sleeve for this album, Help, 1965. This is also Robert Freeman's work. And he also crops up here in 1963, the famous shot inspired by the work of Astrid Kircher, great photographer and friend of the Beatles. But this particular photograph by Robert Freeman. Now, for those of you interested in gossip, it is said that John Lennon, when he wrote Norwegian Wood in 1965, the woman of whom he wrote in that song was none other than Robert Freeman's wife at the time. So there's one for the gossip mongers. Freeman himself, very well respected photographer. He passed away last November 2019. He's responsible for both sides of the sleeve here on Beatles for Sale. It's an interesting sleeve in so much as it's also a gatefold sleeve. It opens out. And here's the inner sleeve here. Now, to say the word collage and Beatles sleeve, you immediately think of Sgt. Pepper, but we've got a collage image here as well. There's an amount of collage work on Revolver in 1966 as well. The most famous collage I would suggest, though, would probably be the Sgt. Pepper sleeve, but we have a collage here as well. The backdrop at Twickenham Studios. The Beatles are at Twickenham Studios here. They spent a lot of time at Twickenham Studios in '64 working on Hard Day's Night, their movie. And yeah, the backdrop comprises a number of famous actors who'd worked at Twickenham Studios. Here are the Beatles out front, snapped by Robert Freeman. Here we've got Albert Finney. Do you see him there? Albert Finney, the great English actor. He's also just down here from the film Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. There he is, kissing Rachel Roberts in that film there. Who else do we have? Victor Mature, the great American matinee idol, who played Samson, I believe, as well. Here, just hiding behind Paul, that's Jane Mansfield. There's Ian Carmichael, the reliable British character actor. And if this comes up in a pub quiz up here, this chin belongs to the great Donald Pleasance. It might come up in a pub quiz. Now, on the topic of pub quiz, I've seen this happen, and it's a trick question. It's a very good one. Which of the following, the question would be along the lines of which of the following, or who of the following has appeared in a collage on a Beatles sleeve? Now, again, that would immediately make you think of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The question at the pub quiz that I'm referring to here included Benny Hill on the lists. Has Benny Hill appeared on a collage in a Beatles album sleeve? Oh, yes, he has. Not Sgt. Pepper, but the comedian right here. There's Benny Hill. An international star towards the end of his days. The comedian Benny Hill doing a song and dance number here with Tommy Steele. one of England's first rock and roll stars. So if it comes up in a pub quiz, yes, Benny Hill did feature on the sleeve of a Beatles album in collage form. It was Beatles for Sale, 1964, the inside picture in black and white. The opposite face of the gatefold here. I said information rich was the phrase that I used here. This is my original 1964 copy. It's 56 years old, still going strong. We've got the sleeve note here, which we'll come back to in a moment, and the credits for the songs. A lot of information there that I'd like to discuss. But I also want to look at this photograph here, this picture here. This is taken in 1964 at the Beatles' first gig in the US. The Beatles famously went to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show in the US, in New York City and in Miami. They also performed in Washington. And this was their very first gig at the Washington Coliseum. It was an indoor arena where they had things like boxing. And at the end of every number, they had to turn the stage 180 degrees so everyone in the round arena could see them. 8,000 capacity, more than 260 American cops there to keep the peace. If you look very closely, this shadow here at the bottom of the picture, and that's an American policeman, and there's another one round the back of the stage there. The suits that the chaps are wearing here, made in London by a fellow called Dougie Millings. Let's go and have a look for his office next on our little mini tour of an album sleeve. This 1965 map allows us to look at Old Compton Street here in Soho. These days, the famous gay high street of London, but at number 63, Old Compton Street, which we pass on the real life rock and roll London walk when we're allowed out. Number 63 was where Dougie Millings, the tailor, had his office in 63 and 64. And he outfitted the Beatles. He made their colourless suits in imitation of Pierre Cardin in 63. He also was the tailor. He was the showbiz tailor. He was the go-to guy, Dougie Millings. He made suits for Cliff Richard, The Shadows, Adam Faith, all the pop stars. The Beatles' first suits cost £31 each. That's a pretty penny back then. That's a couple of £100 per suit these days. For the American tour that we were looking at just a moment ago there, each of the Beatles had 6 suits made in mohair with velvet collars. And so 6 suits at something between £30 and £60 each. That's a pretty penny back then. Fine tailor, Dougie Millings. He did his apprenticeship in the great city of Edinburgh, my hometown. He was a Leith Academy boy, and he did his apprenticeship at the great Jenner's department store, Jenner's on Princes Street. His office moved quite a lot after 1964. John Lennon once joked that every time the Beatles buy suits, Dougie Millings moves office because, you know, he's made another fortune out of the Beatles. Very fine suits. That classic 1964 look made at number 63 Old Compton Street in Soho. Dougie Millings was considered to be important enough to have an obituary in all the major newspapers of the world, including the Glasgow Herald and the New York Times as well, when he passed away. So he made the suits that we saw on the inner sleeve of the album there. Here's the sleeve note. I'm going to do a little bit of reading here. One of my favorite pieces of music prose of all time. The byline is Derek Taylor. Derek Taylor, a Beatles insider and a terrific storyteller. I always like to recommend a book. I'd recommend this one today as time goes by. This is I think a 1970s edition of Derek Taylor's autobiography. He was a newspaper guy. He was a stringer on the Daily Express, and he came into the orbit of the Beatles and was the ghostwriter on Brian Epstein's autobiography, A Cellar Full of Noise. The two men had a bit of a parting of the ways after that, just before this sleeve note was published for the Beatles for Sale album. But he comes back into the Beatles milieu in the late 60s as the press guy for Apple. In the interim period, he'd become the press guy for the Byrds in Los Angeles with Roger McGuinn and Crosby. He'd also been one of the movers and shakers behind the Monterey Pop Festival. So a serious player in the 1960s pop culture scene. Terrific writer, very energetic and fanciful. Here we go. There's priceless history, he writes, between these covers. None of us is getting any younger, he adds. When in a generation or so, a radioactive, cigar-smoking child picnicking on Saturn, no less, asks you what the Beatles affair was all about. Did you actually know them? Don't try to explain the screams and the long hair, he says here. Just play the child a few tracks from this album and he'll probably understand what it was all about. The kids, he says, the kids, he writes, the kids of AD 2000 will draw from the music much the same sense of well-being and warmth as we do today. The kids of AD 2000 on Saturn, smoking cigars. Yeah, lovely, fanciful, energetic, hipster-like vision in prose from Derek Taylor there. It's a terrific sleeve note. Great fun. He also goes on to detail who does what on the sleeve. And indeed, beside the track listing, this is from the inside sleeve as well, it tells you who does what, which I rather like. I like 8 days a week here. John and Paul, occasionally George. Sounds like a weather forecast, doesn't it? Rock and roll music, simply John. Now, I acquired this album in 1976 when I was 7 years old. And I'll be honest, I've been a little bit disappointed with more or less every album ever since, because I thought albums all had this information, who does what, and a readable sleeve note, but they don't, you know. So yeah, the 1976 I acquired this album, at which point it was 12 years old, an information-rich sleeve note. There's the picture there, recording first published 1964. Lots of information. This features on the inside sleeve as well. New is the word there. New technology, ladies and gentlemen. The new Emitex record cleaner, a record cleaning cloth made of rayon, manufactured for the EMI company. So they're doing a little plug for their own products here. It was made of rayon. Rayon is a man-made fiber, a man-made material made from natural fibers. There's all sorts of stuff in there. There's wood and all sorts in rayon. It was a little cloth with a pile like a carpet. And the idea was that the pile would get into the groove of your record to keep it nice and clean. So this is new technology, the new Emitex record cleaner as advertised on all the EMI sleeves. All this information is missing from the compact disc sleeve. There's the compact disc sleeve here. Absolutely bloody wretched things, these compact discs. Good riddance to bad rubbish, if you ask me. A lot of the information from the original sleeve was dumped in favor of this gobbledygook here, whatever this is about. The other thing about the CD reissue, look at that, look at the colors. Now, Robert Freeman's beautiful, rich portrait here with the Beatles facing towards Kensington in an autumnal sunset. Remember the concept, the Beatles at sunset. That was the only design brief. Now, when it's reproduced for CD, look at that. Washed out, peely-wally thing. Look at it. It looks nothing like a sunset. Yeah, and this is 56 years old, this sleeve. I took that photograph yesterday and the colors are as rich as the day they were printed. Good riddance to bad rubbish for the old CDs there. Now, the printing process. I would like to talk a little bit about the printing process for this sleeve. I'd like to talk about the Garrard and Lofthouse company who patented this printing technology with a 1, 2, 3, 4 page patent document. It's an astonishing document. They invented a 2-piece printing method for printing LP sleeves. There's one piece there, and there's the back piece with or the front piece with a fold over tab, which could be gummed or taped together. It meant that you could print in 2 goes and save money. Because your 4-color printer for the front cover would go through one printer, and then usually the back sleeve was black and white, and it would go through the black and white printer fewer times. It was less labor intensive, you used less printer's ink, and therefore it was cheaper. And EMI were so impressed with this new technology that they signed an exclusive deal with Garrett and Lofthouse on the proviso that they had the exclusive rights, and Garrett and Lofthouse would never, ever allow their great rivals, Decca, to use the same technology. So they were trying to cost their competitors money here. Here's the 4-page patent document. Ingenious stuff. Now, this is quite a piece of printing, among other things, because it's gatefold, but again, ingeniously in one piece. There's the front of the printing. This side here would also be on that front panel of 3 12-inch squares. This one only goes through the black and white printer. And inside the sleeve here, I don't know if you can quite see that, the black ink stops a couple of inches into the bag there. So they didn't have to print an entirely 12 by 12 black cover to save some money. Ingenious stuff for all you printing geeks out there. Quite an expensive process with the gatefold. This is the sort of thing you would see on a musical or a classical album. But yeah, this was going to be a big deal, this album. They had high hopes for making a lot of money, and they did, EMI, because this came out in December 1964. Everybody wanted this for Christmas. Now, the logo, or logo, have it as you will, here. Let's have a look at this here. The famous pound sign logo, the trademark of the Parlophone company, the pound sign, actually an ornate, old-fashioned letter L. There it is again on the label, the famous Parlophone label. An ornate, old-fashioned L, L standing for Lindstrom. Lindstrom. Carl Lindstrom is a character in the story of record players. He's one of a number of characters. It's almost like it's like a Klondike-like gold rush culture to try and improve upon. A great many scientists and inventors and businessmen were trying to improve in the late 19th into the early 20th century, trying to improve and evolve Edison's cylinder recording techniques. And it's the race to convert recorded music onto a flat disc, the 10-inch 78 RPM shellac disc. There's a lovely echo in the invention of record players. A similar thing had happened with radio as well. A number of inventors and scientists were racing, careening towards the same conclusion all over the world at the same time. So the radio and the record player, both the child of many fathers. Carl Lindstrom here, a Swede working in Berlin, his contraption, his record player was called, well, he called it the Parlophone. The Parlophone. And the idea was, this is the hardware upon which you would play records. Again, a lot of businessmen, a lot of scientists, a lot of inventors involved in this process noticed that when you sold your record player, your hardware, well, that was it. You know, you didn't make any more money. So to generate more revenue, you would make software for your hardware, records. RCA got involved in this as well, the famous Radio Corporation of America with their great Victrola, the wind-up gramophone. They're probably more famous as a record company today than as the manufacturer of hi-fi. But similar story with Parlophone. The famous Parlophone label was born. Carl Lindstrom, a Swede, that's his initial there, the pound sign, the letter L, which takes us to the label. I'm very enamored of the chutzpah of this album. Side 2 begins with 8 days a week there, as you can see. Now, in Britain, 8 days a week was never a single. It was only ever an album track. It was a single in America. Everything was a single in America to make more money. But here, that was never a single. I love the style of that. We think we've got better, stronger tracks to release as a single. So we'll just leave this on the album. It's one of the most famous and, dare I say, one of the finest early Lennon and McCartney compositions. It opened side 2. It was never a single in this country. Keep in mind that in 63, 64 and 65, the Beatles made 2 albums a year, and they were expected to have a single every 12 weeks. And that single would need 2 songs. Not only did they manage to keep up with this schedule, but every 12 weeks they had not only a single, they had a #1 single. What a machine, the Lennon and McCartney songwriting team. But this album comes in for a little bit of criticism in so much as it's their 4th album, and a lot of people suggest that it's a little step back from their 3rd album, Hard Day's Night, which was composed entirely of original Lennon and McCartney numbers. Here, we've got 6 cover versions on the album too. So some people suggest that the Beatles are rather marking time here. That's going to be the thesis of my podcast. This is no one's favorite Beatle album, and I'm going to make the case for it. I think it's a rather special record. So we'll come to that on the podcast in a little while. But the cover versions are here, and I think very revealing in their own way. A beautiful harmony-led cover of Buddy Holly's Words of Love. Buddy Holly and the Crickets were so influential in the lives of the Beatles. Even the name Beatles, John Lennon's on record as saying, you know, well, what's like crickets? Well, Beatles, and we change it to B-E-A-T for beat music. So hugely influential, but they only recorded one of his songs, and it's on this album. So that's important, I think. The Beatles channeling Buddy Holly. Carl Perkins is on here as well. He was George's great hero. And 2 very fine rockabilly country covers here. Ringo on vocals on Honey Don't, and George doing Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. Side 1 opens with 3 belters, I think. 3 great Lennon and McCartney tracks, then we're into the cover versions, and I think these cover versions are a bit special. Rock and roll music by the immortal Chuck Berry, the poet laureate, the full package, singer, lyricist, composer, guitar player. 10 out of 10 in all departments, the complete package. Lennon's version here, Lennon's vocal version of rock and roll music is, I think, one of his finest recorded vocals. And again, dare I say it, maybe even better than Chuck Berry's original. I'll get complaints about that. Again, vocally, McCartney on Kansas City, Hey, Hey, Hey. I think that's his finest rock and roll vocal that we've got. All on this 1964 album, Beatles for Sale, released in December 1964. That was a tour of an album sleeve, ladies and gentlemen. Is this a world first, a guided tour of an album sleeve? I'm coming round your house because I can't do this. There's a picture of me behaving recklessly. Don't panic, ladies and gentlemen, don't panic. This was taken a number of months ago in Soho, outside Ronnie Scott's club, on a real life guided tour. Come and join me, folks, when lockdown is over. Be safe. When lockdown is over, come and join me on a guided tour. But at the moment, well, I'm hashtag tour guiding from home. I'm coming round your house. There's my new thing. There's my Westminster badge on my slippers there. I've thrown my docs to one side because I'm staying home. And I love your company when you can join me. Thanks for watching today. Keep in touch. There's my Facebook page there. Everything's on the Facebook page that I do musically. This morning I put 3 playlists up on the Facebook page. Alternate takes by the Beatles on the tracks from the Beatles for Sale album. A playlist of the original versions of the cover versions featured on this album. And also a playlist of all cover versions of the Beatles songs, or alternate versions by other artists of the Beatles songs as performed on Beatles for Sale, including a wonderful version of I'm a Loser by the great Marianne Faithfull. We hope you're keeping well, Marianne. That was terrible news that you were not so very well. All our best wishes to the great Marianne Faithfull. Yeah, you can also hear me from time to time on BBC Radio London doing this, talking about music in London, doing virtual guided tours with the walks.com company, London Walks, the famous company. Next Wednesday, I'm launching the Wednesday night rock and roll London walk with live music and a quiz. So I'm throwing the kitchen sink at that one. So come and join me Wednesday night. It costs £8. And for your £8, keep your ticket and then you can have a free walk with me after lockdown is over. Similarly, Tuesday night is Beatlemania. I'm coming round your house at 7 o'clock on Tuesday to tell you all about the Beatles in London because I am hashtag tour guiding from home. I'm coming round your house to do a guided tour. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adam. When all this is over, come and see me on a guided tour. For the meantime, be safe, be well, and come and join me on another virtual tour next time.